They're going to create a monumental problem, something of probably nearly biblical proportions. And then they're going to say, we have a solution for you. Oh, yeah, and this is what it is. And people, no matter what it is, are going to beg for it. They're going to take whatever they can get, because why? They dictate the rules. We are nothing. We are a means to an end, period. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's about control on a scale that I think people are going to just not going to believe moving forward.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance and Reluctant Preppers. We have a returning guest, Gregory Mannarino, the founder of TradersChoice.net and also known as the Robin Hood of Wall Street. He joins us this Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back.
It's always been tough to catch up with you because you're doing so many things. You provide an amazing service there for all of the subscribers on TradersChoice.net. I've been one of your avid followers and helping people to stay aware of what's going on in these upside down times. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off with kind of your big picture view of the crazy world that we're navigating right now, what you think maybe the 1, 2, or 3 things are that people really need to be aware of that most aren't, that will help them understand keeping their feet on the ground during these rough times.
Well, I would have to say the biggest thing is, being that I'm a market guy, is understanding the the disconnect between reality and what the stock market is doing. It's I said in a recent video blog that they can split the earth in half. I said this weeks ago, and stocks will still go higher. Nothing matters anymore with regard to this market, and it's all being fueled by the Federal Reserve, who's in full control of the financial markets, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And we can expect these distortions to get much, much worse. We have tens of millions of people out of work, a culling of small businesses on a grand scale. We're officially in recession, although you're not supposed to know that. And the NASDAQ just hit an all-time record high the last 2 days. And it's not going to stop. Is the market going to pull back? I hope it will. I've been calling for this over the last several days. We've gone parabolic, straight up since the V-shaped recovery for the market. But there's no V-shaped recovery for our economy, and there's no way it's going to rebound like the market. Again, it's just all distorted. It's all fake. It's being propped up with epic sums being funneled out of the Federal Reserve into the Wall Street banks, into the hedge funds. I told everyone weeks ago that these hedge funds had a direct main line to the Federal Reserve and they were going to start buying stocks. Well, that's exactly what they have been doing. It's just too simple to know how to navigate through this market because we know the grand plan and it's in full swing. This is some kind of a twisted new world order system that they're implementing here. This scamdemic was all part of it. Shut down the global economy. So the Federal Reserve could finish their final solution, that is to be the lender and buyer of last resort, so they own the entire world. They're funneling trillions of dollars around the world to central banks who are buying assets with that cash. It's incredible. That's all I have to say. And, the way this was engineered to kill the economy, to stop the money velocity, basically make it go to zero so they can print into oblivion, without any chance of real inflation was, I'd have to say, dastardly and hideous, but at the same time, it was a brilliant, because this is what, this has been a plan for 100 years, more than 100 years. The Federal Reserve was created for what we're seeing now to at one point in the future now become, that's it, the lender and buyer of last resort. And they're working in concert with other world central banks to, again, bring about this final solution and a takeover on a global scale. We've never seen anything like this before. And because of it, we're seeing the stock market defy gravity, defy everything. It's basically invincible right now, all because of the Federal Reserve, what they're doing right now, what they're being allowed to do, not only what they're being allowed to do, what they're being called on to do by members of Congress, by the president himself, low rates, negative rates, Fed president stepping right up saying, hey, we got the cash. How much do you need? I mean, this is doing one thing. It's empowering the central banks. The more debt and loans they're allowed to issue, the stronger they become. A lot of people do not understand that. They think there's a way to bankrupt these organizations. It can't happen. It's an impossibility. They are so powerful that they can shut down the global economy via some kind of black ops operation so they can finish what they've been trying to do for an entire century. And we're here now.
We just spoke with Michael Pinto from Pinto Portfolio Strategies, and he was talking about this two topics that you just touched on. One was the bonds, and the other is the central bank's actions, and both of which we've talked with you about in the past, and I wanted to weigh in with you on both of those. On the bonds, you've talked for some time about don't just watch the flagship indices of the stock markets, but keep your eye on the bond market. And then it was just a few months ago you said, you know what, that's no good either anymore because they've got that collared as well. But he said something that I've heard you say, and that is that after the bond yield curve inverts and all that stuff happens, that there's going to be some point in the future when there's a loss of confidence that's going to cause a snapback in the bonds. He was talking about the slingshot of the interest rate that will be unavoidable at some time in the future. Can you expound on what you and I believe he are both describing there?
Of course. I believe I was probably one of the first people to start talking about this years and years and years ago. And now you got other guys saying the same exact thing. Yeah, Alan Greenspan's another one. Yes, there's going to be a point at one time where a person, an entity holding a bond has got to say, what am I, nuts? I'm guaranteed to lose capital here by holding a bond that is yielding nothing and a stock market that's doing only one thing, and that is go up. You got to be nuts. So we know who's doing all the buying here. But again, this is all a system here to bring the world eventually to its knees via the financial system. A takeover is underway right now. The central banks right now, the Federal Reserve being the hub, they're buying assets with dollars that they create out of nothing because they understand the current system has run its course by design. Okay, so again, there is going to be a moment here, a snapback, or however you want to call it, when people are going to run for the hills who are holding a bond here, and that's going to cause an exodus of cash from the debt market, which is going to have the opposite effect on the stock market that we've been seeing for the last decade. And so we can get a meltdown, a simultaneous meltdown. Cash isn't going to go to money heaven at that point. You got cash bleeding out of the debt market or the bond market, cash bleeding out of the stock market is going to go into hard assets. It's going to go into commodities. I can't imagine another way. And then a new system is going to be introduced, one that is not going to favor any of the people. Again, central banks' control resides in their ability to issue their one and only product. Their one and only product is debt. The central banks right now are running the entire show. Henceforth, why they could split the earth in half and stocks would still go higher if they wanted to. Look, the Fed is the most powerful organization on the earth. Jay Powell is the most powerful man on earth at this point because he controls the flow of capital around the world because the Fed has become the central bank of the world. So with that said, when people see this timid-looking older gentleman, I think he's a hideous individual, a part of a horrible organization that has had one goal for an entire century since their inception, and that is a global takeover, and that's what we're seeing right now. It's unprecedented in history. We're getting bailouts here of cities and states, municipalities. The Fed is more than happy to issue more debt because it makes them stronger. Yeah, but Mike is, I know Mike personally, he's got it right 100%. That's what's going to end up happening at one point here, but who knows what they're going to roll out? I mean, right now we're watching a slaughter of the middle class. The middle class is has been getting systematically decimated for quite a long time. And it doesn't matter as long as the illusion of the stock market is kept real. And right now, that illusion is pretty real. We're in a recession, tens of millions of people out of work, small businesses, many of them closing forever here. But this market seems to defy gravity. It's the Fed. It's the collusion actually between the White House and the Fed to finish this final solution. And it's not President Trump's fault per se. This started under the last guy and even before him. But these last two guys, these last two presidents here, well, they've been the best thing that ever could have happened.
Overachievers.
To the central, exactly, to the Federal Reserve. But no one wants to do anything about it because, again, the alternative is what? Is Mad Max. So all this is doing is enriching the rich, creating this two-tier society, this feudal system that I've been warning about for an entire decade. And here we are. We're here now.
Now, one more point that's I wanted to circle back with you on was something you talked about, the power, the amount of control and influence of the central banks. We talked about that with Michael Pinto as well, and I specifically quoted you in that question to him because it was a question from a viewer, and he gave a different a sidelight on that. He said, yes, they are more influential. Their actions are causing more effects than ever before. But in another sense, they're painting themselves into a corner, just like Japan did, where once you get to the zero and negative interest rates or even zero, you can't back out of that corner. You've got to. You tried unwinding your balance sheet. Nope, that's not going to work. The market's immediately going to start melting down. So that's where you're stuck. Is it a matter of being stuck, or is that the sweet spot where they continue to gain in influence?
Well, we got to look at this thing through another lens here. I think, if you look at this through a static lens, in other words, things are going to remain the way they are, I'll tell you what's going to happen. And I've been warning about this now for, I don't know, probably a month or two. The Fed's balance sheet is going to quadruple from here. And again, once they're done, because what they're doing now is finishing their final solution. Once they're done, and the reason why they've gone hyper parabolic with debt issuance. I mean, understand what we're seeing here. The Federal Reserve is now in the midst of a debt acquisition cycle unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the world, while at the same time buying assets. So this is the setup here. And they're doing it with a system right now which has run its course. So a new system, and I've been telling people this for years, is already there. They're going to implement some new system. I believe it's going to be 100% digital. No, these dollars that we're currently holding, you're probably going to be able to wallpaper your walls with them and maybe tell your grandchildren, we used to use these to transact years ago. Oh, really, Grandma and Grandpa? How did that work? That's all going away. There's going to be a new system, completely new system, more than likely blockchain centered. And so you can forget about it. So I think people that are looking at this whole situation as being static are way, way off. This is the means to an end here. A new system, an entirely new global system of transaction is already thought of. It's already there. It's just a matter of implementing it once the Fed, in collusion with the other central banks around the world, there are hundreds of them, finish their stranglehold on the world. And then we lose our freedoms and our liberties. They get to dictate all the rules. Also part of their 100-year plan.
Let me just lead you back into that same place again. Luke der Anarch says, what is the end game for the bond market? No one wants to buy up treasuries, yield spikes, etc. What is the collapse scenario in terms of the bond market? All I picture is everyone bailing from the dollar and the U.S. debt because we're a banana republic.
Well, yeah. Well, look, at one particular point, like I said, it just leads into exactly what I just said. The system now is at its end, in my opinion. That doesn't mean it's not going to go on for a little while, but I happen to believe with every fiber of my being that there is an entirely new system just getting ready to be rolled out. When this one here finally, however they're going to end it. See, that's what worries me more than anything else. Right now, we're in this period of, euphoria with regard to the stock market. The illusion of the market keep people distracted via any mechanism they possibly can. Our politicians, the mouthpieces for the central banks, all of them. Anyway, so what I worry about is when this thing actually is done, how are they going to implement it? In other words, we're going to need something catastrophic to happen, because what they're going to do is they're going to sell it. They're going to be like, okay, well, this system here, it's not working anymore. So what we're going to do here is we're going to implement this new system. Right? They already have it all planned out. And then they're going to introduce this to the people who are going to beg for a solution. They're going to create a monumental problem. Notice what I just said. They're going to create a monumental problem, something of probably nearly biblical proportions. And then they're going to say, we have a solution for you. Oh, yeah, and this is what it is. And people, no matter what it is, are going to beg for it. They're going to take whatever they can get, because why? They dictate the rules. We are nothing. We are a means to an end, period. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's about control on a scale that I think people are going to just not going to believe moving forward.
Well, who would have believed a year ago what happened already this year, just in 2020, and the scale and the scope and the velocity with which countries all over the world basically locked down their people, and we abdicated all kinds of our civil liberties and so on. So many businesses, as you mentioned, being driven out, many others not being able to transact in cash anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's hideous to me. I mean, this entire thing was engineered from the get-go and then blown so out of proportion. Fear. Look, if there's one thing that they do is control people's minds via the mechanism of fear, make people afraid of one thing, and that's it. Then you got them completely controlled. And so again, being that the fear mechanism works over and over again, it will never not work. That's what they're going to do, and we can expect more of this to get whatever they got to do, whatever they have to do to implement, to fake, to create out of thin air, whatever psyop that they want to play on the people in order to, manifest or make their realization of becoming, the rulers of the world happen. Well, that's what they're going to do. No, and whatever it is, and all they're going to do is drag the people along with them. This is a mechanism that has been in place for thousands and thousands of years. How the few have controlled and ruled the many via fear, via propaganda, via fake news from the very source that calls it fake, by distractions. Again, people, sadly, they don't think anymore. They've been so indoctrinated into this new normal, we're all alone together, all these catchphrases here that they're throwing at us, these new world order catchphrases, but people don't see it. Most people don't see it for what it is. I know you do. I know the people that follow your work do. You see, because you have to understand, you and me and the people that follow our work, we are able to see a little further down the road than most people are, because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an evolutionary project thing that's going on here. I don't know. Some people can think outside the box. Some people can't. And some people must think inside that box. And then otherwise they become threatened and they lash out. So, there's always that's going on too. And I've been saying this for a long time. I sincerely believe there is a natural selection going on here, where certain groups of people are able to see through it, are able to take all this in and come up with what's actually going on, while the vast majority walk through time and space not knowing who they are, what they're doing, why they're doing it. They're just like drones. And this is also by design, the dumbing down of society via the main.
weigh in on
by
with
the
you.
mainstream media.
Yep, is that rather than like some evolutionary thing, it absolutely seems like something that's been imposed, because some of the people who seem the most lucid to me are those who haven't bought into this new modern, electronically, everybody's staring at a screen to get their version of reality, but they trust their gut, they trust traditional wisdom, they trust what their grandparents taught them, and that kind of thing. Common
It's
sense.
innate. It's like an innate thing. I don't know what it is. Some people can see it, some people can't. Most people can't. And, I'm sure you're in the same boat as me. You try to, and I'm sure most of your listeners are too. You try to engage someone in a conversation that maybe to some people would seem a little far-fetched, and they go crazy and they get angry.
Yeah.
But again, this is why I've been urging people to get together with like-minded people that think along the same wavelength here. I think the crowd, or the group of us, is getting larger and larger. How do we know that? Look at your channel, look at my channel. We're getting through to more people. We're making a difference. That's the only reason, why I am still out here on YouTube doing interviews, doing all this stuff, because I feel in my heart of hearts that we're doing something good. If I didn't feel it, if I didn't believe it, I would stop today. I could do other things. I don't need to, but I feel like we're doing this because we're making positive change in the world. All of us, the people that are watching your work, you yourself, they're talking, they're out there saying, hey, listen to this. Maybe there's some truth to this. What do you think? We're making a difference. And it's to me, it is the most important thing. I've been urging people to make a difference in life. Do something, for someone you don't know. It's got to start with someone. So why not? Why can't it be you and I? And it is you and I. And it's the people that are listening to our work. We are making a difference collectively.
That made me think about how my wife and I are planning on going to Las Vegas next month in July for the Freedom Fest 2020 from July 13th through 16th. So hope to see you while we're in Las Vegas. And that's populated by people who are advocates for liberty and for freedom and for reclaiming people's rights to not be dominated by overlords, but to have their natural sovereignty restored. The other thing you were just talking about a few minutes ago is about always being distracted, about if they can get you afraid of one thing, is that you stick around long enough and you realize that the thing you're supposed to be afraid of keeps changing. But the fact that you're supposed to be afraid of something is the thing that's the constant across all that. I remember when I was in high school, we were supposed to be afraid of the Russians. And then, okay, you don't have to worry about the Russians anymore. Now you just worry about terrorists. Okay, now we got to worry about terrorists. And no. You don't got to worry about terrorists. Worry about domestic terrorists in these mass events. Okay, no. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Now worry about immigration. Okay, immigration's a big problem. No, don't worry about that anymore. Now it's COVID-19. Okay, now immigration's not a problem. Now it's COVID-19. And now with COVID-19, okay, now we don't want people to immigrate. A minute ago we did. Now COVID-19 isn't so much a problem. Now it's these riots and everything and racism. It's like, holy smokes.
We cured the virus via the riots. I mean, it's gone. Yeah. This thing, this lethal thing, it's
no more social distancing necessary. Yeah.
Whatever they got to do. And this is the mechanism you're going to see over and over again. That's my fear. What are they going to throw at us next? And it's got to be larger. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be more shocking. You understand? Because people become immune. It's a crazy situation. So whatever they do next has got to hit harder. It's got to hit with more impact to create more fear. And they're going to do it. They are experts at doing this. That's my biggest worry, honestly, is what is next, because it's already in the works. They just got to unleash it. They're waiting for the moment to do it, and they are going to get people very, very, very afraid. More so than this COVID-19, more so than these riots. I mean, it's just got to get larger in magnitude until their grand finale, and who knows what that's going to be, but. Related
question from John Galt, who says, seems like with no police departments, they'll bring in social scores, eliminate the Second Amendment, move to digital currency while killing small businesses in an effort to force political correctness as we all work for big government or corporations. This will force our compliance of all the politically correct, or we lose our jobs, career, reputation for any free speech that they deem inappropriate. Like all lives matter is now considered racist. Will digital currency be the next thing to outlaw cash due to the virus, crime, drugs, and the narrative? Wouldn't the elimination of cash be the death of gold and silver?
Oh, absolutely not. No, the gold and silver, nothing is going to change the fact that these have been real money, real assets for thousands upon thousands of years. It'll never change. So again, I am, as you well know, I am the biggest advocate probably that I know of holding hard assets, especially physical silver. That's my favorite asset of all time. All time. If you got to hold one thing and one thing only, it would be silver, physical silver. I'm into everything. You know that. I own all kinds of things. And I think that's important. But that's my favorite. That's Greg Mannarino's number one, physical silver, period, the end. But yeah, everything that gentleman was saying up to that point was 100% correct. And we need to start thinking a little bit down the road. What are they going to throw at us next? It's got to be worse. It's got to be of a greater magnitude. It's got to affect more people, because people, like I said, they become kind of like dull. They become desensitized in a way. So, until they get in, and then what's going to end up happening is a psychological effect. People are going to end up, whatever they throw at us as these things that get worse, people are going to end up in a state of learned helplessness. It's actually a medical term, where they're going to get into a state of where they almost don't even care what happens anymore. Just, it doesn't matter anymore because I don't matter anymore. This is what they're going to do. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever of how it's going to play out down the line. Just expect the unexpected, and expect whatever is coming to get monumentally worse, more fear, hitting with a larger impact, get more people afraid, control them via this mechanism. It's all about control.
What you mentioned just now about people feeling helpless and that be a learned habit happens at every level of scale as well, because we've seen corporations and municipalities and states also saying that they wanted a declaration of national emergency, or they wanted the governor to come in and force them their hand, because corporations who had made obligations, commitments, business commitments that they were going to ship a certain number of parts or whatever to some other customer, or they would get damages contractually or whatever. But if the government says I have to shut down, then it's not my fault. It was a force majeure. So there's this sense of not my fault that can happen when these big things happen. It can almost be a relief to people. Go, well, at least I get an excuse now. The dog ate my homework then, or the COVID ate my business plan, or whatever. Now I can go for a bailout. It's a horrifying temptation for our human nature to think that it can happen at corporate scales and municipal scales and state scales and nation states as well.
It's all 100% true. Everything he's saying, and I got to ponder more of this, but and I'm glad we got to talk today, because it's even getting my wheels turning a little bit. What is coming next? That's what people need to really start worrying about, and getting ready for it. Whatever it is, always always keep the high ground, and don't be complacent. Always think, what can I do if a worst case scenario unfolds? What can I do for myself, my family, for the people I care about, for my community? You know what I mean? We need to get together. We need to stop listening to these imbeciles who want to weaponize people against each other. They're bad because of this, and these people are bad because of that. And this divide and conquer thing really does work. Sincerely, why do you think, honestly, the last two presidents have been the masters of keeping people divided. This current guy, I think there's been nothing like him before. The last guy was pretty bad, but this guy takes the cake, in my view. They don't want to bring people together at all. And this two-party system is a joke. There's one party. It's all about dividing and conquer. I really think that President Trump and Nancy Pelosi, they go out for tea and they laugh their rear ends off, and look how we duped everyone. It's a joke. This is just one system. It's one party, one directive. It's a terrible thing. But anyway, going back to what I'm saying, we need each other. And we just got to realize that we're not each other's enemies, no matter how hard they try to convince us that we are each other's enemies. We're not. We're one global family, regardless of what nationality we are, what color our skin is, what faith we are. Don't matter. We're one family, period, the end. But they're going to try to divide us. They're going to continue it. They're going to make it worse. And that's probably part of the scheme for the next round. Whatever they got to do to keep people split up. Because if we come together, then we become a threat. If they keep us divided and confused and off balance, they win. This is what they do over and over and over again. So expect more of it.
The other thing you mentioned, and it resonates with our audience here on the preparedness side, is the more prepared people are and the more intentional, proactive, self-directed steps that they've taken, whether it's choosing a homestead location, or whether it's becoming more responsible for relationships with their local food producers and growing their own garden and sharing things with their neighbors and that kind of thing, then they don't feel so helpless. So when the stores close, they go, well, I got my garden, I got my neighbor who raises chickens, and my other neighbor is a beekeeper, and we've got things figured out among us because we do that at the community level. So it's that's the other part, is people who've written to us, and we've even had on who said that, look, I'm living in an area that I intentionally chose, and I'm surrounded by like-minded people we're trying to support our families primarily, and then each other as a community. We have strength in that, so they're not going to feel disempowered immediately every time the supply chain gets cut off.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the key to this whole thing. We can beat them if we just understand what they're trying to do. And it can't be simpler, because it's always been the same story since pre-biblical times. It just doesn't stop. It won't stop. And I think it's going to get worse and accelerate from here, honestly.
We have one last question for you. You touched on it earlier, but it sounds like your advice here is going to be in the term of forming relationships with people where you're helping each other. I think that's maybe where you're going to come from. Michael Dell asks, Greg, how would you summarize our current state of affairs if you were at a dinner table with people who only watch the mainstream? Can they be convinced?
Some people cannot be convinced, no. Via my own experience, interacting with people, again, they're just incapable of it. They've been so indoctrinated they can't think outside the box. Don't waste your time. All it will do is bring you grief. I think you got to connect with like-minded people. You can try to talk sense to people. You could, like, what do they say? You could bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You got to understand it's the same thing, sadly, with people that we love and people that we care about. And that's okay. Either they're going to at one point come around to a realization. In fact, one of my family members recently came to like an epiphany over this entire thing that I've been talking about for the longest time. It's actually my own mother, believe it or not. My own mother didn't buy into any of it at all. And now she's turned around and she went, my God, Greg, everything you said, I've been saying is true. And I actually can finally see it. She literally was like, a new breath, like literally an epiphany overtook her. And now I can't stop her from talking about it. It's incredible. It really is. She's really turned around. And we can hope that these things are going to happen. At one point, something's just going to click, like a neuron or something is going to fire in someone's brain. And then once one little piece falls into place, the rest will follow. Bang, 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 just like that. And that's why I think, the fact that we're getting bigger, people are listening to our work, our audiences are growing, says a lot to me, that people are starting to see it. People are starting to understand it. And, I think it's hopefully it will grow exponentially. One person will turn to two, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, blah, 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 on and on and on. So that's what I can hope for. Because in the end, when they finish this, when they start implementing more of these control mechanisms on us, fear, we're going to need each other more than ever.
Well, we've been speaking with Gregory Mannarino, the founder of TradersChoice.net. I know you've got a place on TradersChoice.net where people can click to support your work there, because everything you provide is free there. And people, you can also support our work at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers. So make sure that you help us to stay independent, because the more independent we are, the more we can speak out without worrying about whatever YouTube defunding or anything else. So thanks, Greg, for being here with us and sharing your perspective with us. We'd love to have you back on soon.
Yep, let's do it. Thank you.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver. I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession or to professional vault storage or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now and protect your family's future starting today.